Dad, what I want to do is talk to you about your background. You're always talking about life in Europe when you were a youngster and all kinds of stories. And some of these stories are very interesting. I never remember the details, and I'd like to get it down on tape, so I have it. But before I do that, I want to say one thing. When Doris talks about you telling stories, or Joyce talks about you and stories, invariably what always comes up is this business of yours of being able to count in Gypsy. And they always ask me to do it. I can't do it. I remember a few of the words and they laugh, but I'm not doing it right. So at the beginning of this, you've got to do it so we have it on tape and we have it correctly. So what I want you to do first of all is to count from 1 to 10 in Gypsy. So do that.
Honor, dronor, tronor, schädel, paddel, luchta, buchte, zagel, magel, chach.
Okay, now how would you say from 11 to 20?
Chach chachonor, chach chadmonor, the head and the chach. That's as far as I know.
Now where did you learn this?
Where? You know, I was once going at night with a German gendarme. His name was Gustav Niedrig. He came from the city of Glogau. That's the lower part of Silesia. And that was late. He had a big gun with him. And he says to me, you know, I hear not very far away there is some group of strangers. He stretched out on the ground and he says, I'm sure, get up, we'll start walking until we find out what is what. Naturally, I was scared. I was a young boy.
How old?
How old was I? That after mother was died, well, I must have been 15 and a half, maybe, see. So, but he had a gun, and he was very brave. As we walked on the main highway from our city to Progeny, he says, I think I see some lights far away off the road. He was very courageous, that guy, and strong as anything. So I went with him. I couldn't go back by myself, I'm afraid. We came closer and closer. Yes, he says, there is a group I see from far. They are in a circle. When we got there, he started to ask him questions, where they come from and how long will they stay here. He says, we never stay too long, we keep on traveling. Where do you come from?
What language was all this?
They spoke a little German, they spoke a little Hungarian, they spoke a little Russian. They weren't educated in any way, but they spoke different dialects. And it was interesting. We seen the women and the daughters were on the big wagons there covered up. The men went out to discuss. The women, they pushed in the back. They didn't want to slow down. We spent a few hours with them. And I don't know, somehow he says, I don't think I'll ever learn your language. And I asked them, how do they come? Do they know what? And one of them, a young, tall fellow with black, told me that. And I think somehow I marked it down because I was inquisitive to know. Then when I have repeated it many times, it remained in my mind. That's all there is to it. But I'll tell you, whenever those gypsy wagons went through town, everybody were scared to death. They pushed in the children. Did they ever come to your town?
They were hiding.
Hiding. They pushed in the children. They shouldn't kidnap them, see?
And chickens.
And they were all a bunch of thieves. Whatever they could get, before you looked around, it was already gone.
Why don't you say why they were taking the children off the street? Because they used to kidnap.
Kidnap, sure, I'm telling you. So this is how I know a little bit of Gypsy. I couldn't talk the language. They were not educated in a way that everyone is, you know, but among themselves, their group.
All right, what I want to ask you, I'm always confused between the two towns you lived. You lived in Ruzhany or Ruzhanoi.
Ruzhanoi is in Yiddish, Ruzhany.
And you lived in Slonium.
Slonium was the county seat.
But
I thought you lived in two different places.
No, but I'll tell you, when we had to go, when a fellow got older, he had to go to serve the Tsar, he had to go to Slonium. That was the county seat.
But that was a town. That was a village or a city.
No,
that was at least 3-4 times bigger than Ruzhany, see?
All right, you were born in Ruzhany.
Ruzhany was born. That's right. My uncle had factories, leather factories in Slonium.
All right, but I know you sometimes tell people you come from Slonium.
Because they never heard of Ruzhany. Well, some people did, because Ruzhany was actually a well-known city. We gave out great people, exceptional great.
How far was one from the other?
36 Russian miles. That means...
Like kilometers, you mean?
Kilometers, but under the Germans they changed. We had it Vjost, you know, in Russian. It was 36. With the diligence was that you used to go to the railroad station. See, you could go to Azhanica. That was north from us, but the road was through the woods and it was sandy. So on the other one was a regular road. Slonium, Baranovich, Minsk, you know. It was called Brestskaya Moskovsky Chaussee, Brest-Litovsky, you heard of that city. So that was a good one. So the one at Diligence was the one that went to the railway station to pick up merchandise, see. But we also had one with a very nice droshka. You heard of the word droshka, very nice.
It's a carriage?
A carriage, you know, with 2 horses. And that would take him 3.5 to 4 hours to go there, but for passengers only, see. Slonium was very well known because Yehi Zichei Bor, that means may be blessed his memory. There was one of the great big tzaddikim, Ramochtal Zechine Levroch, okay. He was a Balmefis. Balmefis means he was doing wonderful work. Was a very learned and a great tzaddik. When he passed away at the end of 1915, every single store in the city of Slonium was closed, and even the German officers, you know, kept order. The funeral was so huge, they came from all over, you know.
What made him so renowned?
What? He was a Balmefis. He could see, he could tell. Maybe I shouldn't even mention the fact. My mother, Alea Sholem, blessed her memory, once with a sister-in-law team for Brocho, and my mother went in. But he says, I don't want to see the other woman. Many a times when you see a Yiddish Frau went to the Schara River, and Slonium was the Schara River, he would call her in and talk. Somebody was drowned at that time, and he didn't want to Chalele bei ihm zu tun. Oh, wer hat das nicht gehört? In Kleinigkeit. One of the great rabbis. We had yeshivas.
You considered him to be a prophet?
Well, in a way, people came to him for broches. most of the officers, when they were sent to the battlefield, they first stopped over and asked him
Now
for a
this was
blessing.
in Slonium.
Slonium.
Now Slonium had a lot of synagogues, right?
Oh, yeah.
But all the rabbis there considered him to be the greatest one?
One a very learned man, remarkable. I mean, if you ask anybody that went to yeshiva, they would know.
Now with Rizhani and Slonium, were Jews the majority of either one of them, or they were still a minority?
Jews, the majority.
In both?
Because the Goyim lived in the back where the streets wasn't paved, around the city. And in all the villages, the Jews had the nicer homes, where the Jews lived in the center of the city, we had sidewalks, and it was all around better kept.
How many people would you guess lived in, let's say, Rizhani?
In Rizhani, Yiddish people between 5,000 and 6,000, that's all. And a few thousand going. But
And in Slonium?
Slonium was much more. But we had in Rizhani 10 shul, because people went every single morning, and Mincha Maariv, if a shoemaker was working in his shop, in his house, when it came the time for Mincha Maariv, dropped it, took off his apron and ran to shul to daven.
So there was never a problem of a shul not having a minyan.
Oh my God, 3 minyanim. 3 in the morning used to run from all over. Rizhnoi gave out great people, in fact, Mr. Tillman, Oliver Sholem, told me that he remember that when Maxim Litvinov, that was the first Russian ambassador to Washington, he was in Russia, big shot, he went when he was a young boy to our yeshiva. Rizhnoi was a city of learned people. Dr. Pines, one of the greatest ophthalmologists, came from Rizhani. Any immigrant went to Bialystok to see Dr. Pines. Why, he would ask? People, some, wanted to make sure that they haven't got trachoma.
Trachoma, yes.
Because if not, they would be sent back and never make it. So they all went, but Dr. Pines got it first early upbringing in the Pines Mishpoche from Rizhnoi. What were the Pineses? Manufacturers of quilts, cauldrons, factories. Rizhnoi had the Weberei, the cloth factories, that was sent all the way to Russia.
They manufactured
manufacturers.
Fabric.
And also leather. We had manufacturers that a lot of goyim from all around, from the villages, used to come in, in the morning, and they work, Shabbos.
What about in Slonium? What was the industry there?
About here, but on a greater scale. Now, my uncle had a lot of people working for him. That's right.
All right, what I wanted to find out before you get to your uncle, basically I want to find out as much as you can tell me about both sides of your family. Your mother's side was the Zeiger family.
Zeiger family.
Now, how far back can you go in tracing the family tree or the family line?
I myself couldn't go very far because I was only a year and a half when my Zeidel Rosholem passed away. But my brother Raimi used to tell me that he used to take my hand and would keep it in his mouth and kiss it,
Your mother's father?
Yeah, my mother's father.
Now, what did he do for a living?
Also he was connected to the big outfit that was exporting to Russia, see?
And he was also a very religious man?
If you went on the main highway to Slonim, you would notice from far where it was the Yiddish cemetery, you would see my Zayden Smile, the first straw was all the great.
Oh, what was his first name?
Yankiv Zeiger, Zechene Lebrocho. That's why when we went to America, the rabbi, that is, this rabbi was Maxim Litvinov's uncle. See, his brother, you heard, you ever been in the city of Bialystok, Lapis 33? You ever heard of a big wholesale apothecary house? That was, they're all big mishpachas, see?
Bialystok was how far away?
Oh, Bialystok was further. You had to go day and night to travel with a wagon. Unless you went to Slonim, or Zhenitsa, that I told you pretty well, was closer, you traveled to Bialystok.
Now, what about your mother's mother? Did you know anything about her?
Yes, I used to go over and see where the women's graves were separated. See, not
But you never knew her?
No, I was named after her.
Oh, that's right.
Everyone says Shane Miro, so Shleime Marim. I had, and if a child got sick, the mother would give him an extra name, Zuling, like my brother, Chaim, Yosef, Pesach. That was the mamas. The mamas and the
that was the tradition.
They sacrificed their life for the children.
Do you know how old these people, to what age they lived? Like your grandfather, your grandmother?
I couldn't tell you because I was a baby. I only know from what I heard, and the one that knew a lot was a lady that she lived there in Spring Valley. She came.
Sarah.
Yeah. She was making for all the
wigs.
The wigs. She was fixing her, and she said, "Dus gaat a Boben." Sie vielleicht kommen hier aufstreuen und so. Vielleicht sie da lange an April, 5 Rubel, sie soll das zu teilen, sie weiß, wem zu geben.
Now your mother was one of how many children?
She was born with how many children?
No, she was one of how many children in her family? Brothers, sisters?
Yes, I know. That's as far as I know. Was Beryl and Navi, the sons, and the daughters was Malke, and the Mame, Home, Zhenya, and Chagitl was from Samara, was they called them later 4 or 5 daughters I counted.
So your mother was one of 5 daughters?
Sisters, 2 brothers.
Well, I'm saying, your grandparents had how many children? Your mother's father and mother had how many children?
Yeah. What did I say, Libby? 4 daughters. Malke, Dobe, Home, Zhenya, and Chagitl. 5 daughters and 2 sons. Yeah.
Okay, and your mother's first name?
Was Dobe.
Dobe
Fegel. Zwei Namen, Dobe Fegel.
And she was in the middle, or as far as the ages of the sisters? There were no brothers, no boys?
My mother had 3 boys, 3 sons, yeah.
No, I know your mother had 3. I'm talking about your mother had sisters. Your mother had sisters, but she had a brother too.
She had a sister. That was Raya's mother, see? Choma.
No, I'm confused. The names you just mentioned, I said your mother's parents.
Yeah.
Your grandmother and your grandfather.
Yeah.
Had 4 daughters. You just named the daughters for me.
Was it 4 or 5? I get me. I'll tell you, Malko, that's the cousin that came that the brought him over from Portland, was the eldest. I don't know, Mama was 2nd or 3rd. Mama. And Chome is 3, and Zhenya Chagitl, 5 daughters and 2 sons.
Okay, and so she had 2 brothers. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the brothers' names were what?
The brother, Beryl, and one was Abba. He's still in worship. I don't know whether they're alive, because I never got a reply.
This Abba, you mean?
Yeah.
So the uncle who you said was so wealthy in the, Ural Mountains?
Huh?
The tiger, the man you always say was so
wealthy.
That's your mother's brother.
When I was a boy of 10.
Well, what name did he have?
Beryl Tiger.
Okay.
He was so wealthy that, first I'll get to the point. I remember distinctly that when the German army in 1915 got closer and closer to our region, he sent 2 great big wagons And he said he's moving away to Russia. He rented it to one of the Chwonik's sons from Rojanoi. His factories, the houses, he had 2 houses. One was, I've seen both, big ones, near the station not far. And he subleased, I would say, and he went away because they were he was a per vigilde kupets. A Jew couldn't live in those states from Russia unless he was a doctor or he held a very high position, otherwise das gedacht schmaden, you know.
Yes, to convert.
But he had a per vigilde kupets, big secher, so they live in the city of Samara, Kubyshev, you heard, under because when the Germans fought, very far, you know, so they moved away from Leningrad. You know what the standstill around Leningrad and Moscow in the center, and they went and headed in Kubyshev on the Volga River.
Did you ever meet him personally?
Oh, sure, I met him. When I was a boy of 10 years old, they wanted Mama should arrange, they wanted to see me, to know me. So I went with a diligence all night in a wagon, with a covered wagon, you know.
And you went to where?
To Slonim. It was more reasonable than to go with the other one, and I came there. And the wife, Fanya, was exceptional nice to me. She used to bring me a glass of warm milk to the bed. Was very, very nice. And when I spent this time there, was to me such a full of excitement. And there I met my uncle Abba. He lived a little further in the state of Minsk.
What did he do?
He was for him, like say, a regional salesman outside.
Wasn't it strange, though, for someone to move so far away from the family?
Oh, he didn't want to remain under the Germans' occupancy, so they moved there. And now it is just in time to tell you a little story that is connected with that. When I worked for the Edelsteins in 7th Avenue, Prospect Park West, a gentleman used to come in every morning. In those days, they didn't sell bottles of milk, nor 40-quart cans. And outside, they used to deliver, big Irishman used to deliver to the store 4, 5, 40 or 50 quarts to a can, I don't remember. But Mr. Edelstein, all the rest in peace, couldn't lift it up, so it was waited for me, and I put it in, and the guy used to leave great big chunks of ice in those days. It was Borden's company, and I chop it up among them. So a gentleman used to come in to the store in the morning with a can. I would give him the milk. And once I started to talk to him, I says, I don't know, something, I had a feeling that he must have been one of those Jewish prisoners of war, you know, the Austrian army, Galicia. They had under the Kaiser Franz Joseph all the big privileges. They could become even a general, and there was one General Monash, not under the Germans. Only if he was a doctor, he could become a lieutenant and higher. But under the Austrians, he couldn't. So I started to talk to him. I am anxious to know, where do you come from? He says, originally from Galicia. But he said, like all the Austrian army fell in the prisoners of war. I seen them groups. They didn't care to fight very much, and they used to go in so they would be sure with their life.
You're talking of the First World War.
That was the First World War I'm talking, sure. Always having a group of 300, 400. So I asked him, you were a prisoner of war? You may listen to that, Libby. I'm telling you the real truth of the matter. So you heard it many times? Yeah. So he says, yes. I say, whereabouts did you serve? Oh, he says, far away in the Ural Mountains. In the Ural Mountains, I say, what city? There is 5 big cities, Ekaterinburg, Zlatoust, Perm, and Orenburg. There were big cities right on the border, the Ural Mountains from North Benin, because the Ural River fell into the Caspian Sea. See? So he says, in the city of Orenburg, I say, in the city of Orenburg, is that where you were? He says, yes. I was, he says, there were thousands of them working for this. Was a big Jewish macher, big man. And he got bewildered. Why do you ask me all these little questions? Do you come from there? I say, no, I myself have never been in Orenburg. But tell me more about it. Who was the big boss there? So he left. He says, well, what if I'll tell you? So what? I say, I'm just anxious to know. He says, yeah, Aaron Yakovlevich Zeiger. Yakovlevich in Russian, they say the father's name, see, you know what I mean? Like you would say Harvey, and my name is given in Russian Solomon in school. We say Solomon Brevda. So I say, Zeiger, is that right? I say. And he got so bewildered. I say, can you tell me any details about him? Sure, I can tell you a lot. He says, you know what? He had his wife, Fanya, used to make for all the Jewish prisoners for every holiday a great big affair for all the Yiddish. And we were hundreds of Yidden there working because he was with the Russian government. And then he went Kolchak, if you heard Kolchak. And he was the big, he used to be.
So these were all prisoners of Russia?
Yeah, it was in Russia. Oh, he says, they treated us. He built a hospital there, he says, for the prisoners of war.
But these prisoners worked for your uncle?
For my uncle.
Why? Why should he have employed? I mean, why should the Russian government have given him free labor?
The Russian government where he was until the Bolsheviks. See, when Lenin and Trotsky originated, they didn't capture right away all of them because they had a lot of the conservative Tsarist generals, Yudenich, Wrangel, Balachevich, Petlura, you know, he was killed in Paris by Eden that shot him, that was a pogomshik. They didn't want the Bolshevists, or, you know. But anyway, I'll make it happen.
But what I'm asking is, if these prisoners were working for your uncle,
yeah,
why, and they were prisoners of the Russian army, correct?
Yeah.
Why would the Russian government give your uncle all this labor? What was he doing for the Russian government?
All right. Because the Russian government, for Chabar means greft, they would do anything. I was told by a cousin of mine that I met years later, he was going to Warsaw to the university, told me that he wanted to come. He brought over, Zeiger had a sister in Odessa on the Black Sea, he brought him there, you know what I mean? My cousin, that is a daughter that came 20 years ago, you remember that, the one from Portland brought him over. So, well, anyway, he sent for us wagons. The German army is coming closer and closer. We were already putting away things and vermeuren with bricks. You know what I mean? That if a big bomb, it shouldn't destroy everything.
But wait, I have to go back because I'm still not clear on something.
Yeah.
Are you saying that your uncle paid off some Russian official to get all this free labor in the form of...
I don't know exactly how it was transacted because I was told, see, I received from some of the prisoners of war that went through, they walked, they got rights and they went home, brought me a letter. And it says in the letter, Kinderlach, we discovered that mother is gone to neutral country center, to Switzerland, or I don't remember, and twice. And we got money from them also to Portugal somehow. And this prisoner of war stopped and gave me a letter. And the letter said, the teller von Himmel wird euch nicht fehlen if you can make the trip. I knew if I will take my younger brother with me, he was a schwacher Bolschevik, see, and he will never be able. And I promised my mother that I'll bring him to my father. I have already had mapped out everything, I made ready where I could tell you every station. I would probably get there because I knew the map very, very well. How many authorities, how many stations, and once I would make the Volga River and get over. But I knew that my younger brother will never survive, and I promised my mother before she died that I'll bring him to my father. What's the matter now? What happened?
Mom is saying that, from what she remembers of people saying in the family, that these prisoners of war never worked for your uncle. He just was aware of them and was very philanthropic towards them, towards their welfare and things of that sort.
This Jewish prisoner of war says hundreds of them Yiddish prisoners from Galicia that fell into there, they were working, he says, I don't know whether the government sent them into, he was with the big shots, my uncle, a big shot. Because
but you think they worked for him. Mom was saying that they didn't work for him, that he didn't employ prisoners.
Well, he says, he told me they all worked for him.
All right.
So I don't know, maybe part of them.
Anyway, what I'm trying to...
That's what he told me.
What I'm trying to really establish, going back to the beginning of this, is the family on your mother's side.
Yeah.
And obviously he was the wealthiest member of the family. And what kind of contact did you have with him? In other words, you came to America. Once you came to America, to your father, did you have any contact with any of the relatives in Russia?
I remember we received a letter from Slonim that time, or a couple of letters, but I don't remember exactly what was written. In my opinion, I thought that was a letter to find out how we are, we made it, and details. I couldn't tell you. I only know one thing. My father came twice from the United States home, and they tried to get him in.
To the business?
Yeah, in Samara. He told me that himself. But my father was a frumer, a gelernter. He told me a lot of stories there that they've seen, but er sich nicht gekannt reinpassen. That means he couldn't mix with them. A Yeshiva-Woche gesessen gelernt. My father was a great learner.
Did you learn anything specifically about what happened to all these people during the Holocaust? Do you know specifically what happened?
Yes, I seen it here in once in the vom the book, where we aber gelernt. Umgekommen, you can find it in your UF there, so about Slonim.
Well, I don't have a book about Slonim.
Yeah, but in the UF, there's 16 or 18 books.
Yes,
you'll find a Slonim.
But it doesn't say about your family.
No,
I'm talking specifically
yes.
about members of your family, or about your uncle in Kubishev, or anything like that. You don't know specifically what happened. You know nobody survived.
I know that when finally the Bolshevik government leaked all this Petlura, Yudenich, Rangel, and all this Balachovich, then they went to get Kolchaks. You know what I mean? General Kolchak had all of Sibir.
I'm talking of World War II.
Of World War II? Well, World War II, I was here. I
know you were here. That's what I'm saying. Do you know what happened to any of these people?
I know that when the Bolsheviks took over, the workers there in Ombo, they all stood up, that they were treated very, very nice for my uncle, and they stood up that they shouldn't take away from, or they killed out all the wealthy manufacturers and all the, but they stood up for him, that he was very kind to workers and all that, and they didn't do him any harm.
You're talking of 1917. I'm talking of the 1940s.
Of the 1940s, I couldn't tell you much at all in the 1940s.
Then you don't know.
Only until...
You don't know if these people died during the Holocaust or during the war.
I'll tell you what. Raya's mother corresponded with us. That was in the upper 20s. Raya went to Israel in 27. We used to correspond. And she says, ich komm jetzt von Slonim, Solomon, der Älteste, he won a prize, the most handsomest man, you know, from the whole region. He was so handsome, this cousin son hat mir gesagt, outstanding, but somehow, I don't know, I developed heart failure. And in what year, I don't remember, but she went from Regenoi, Raya's mother, to the funeral there. Can you imagine the Sheina Solomon, sagt sie, ist sie nicht mehr. She had written.
Yes, but what year are you talking about?
I couldn't tell you exactly what year, but when he came back, he got back all his factories and homes, you know, to Slonim. Raya was in his house, she went to the gymnasium.
Yes, but you're talking of the 1920s.
That's right, in the 20s.
Okay, but for example, didn't Raya's mother and father, which would have been your mother's sister, Raya's mother.
Yeah. I have all the letters.
Didn't her parents take their lives, commit suicide?
Well, that was in the Second World War.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Second World War, as far as we know, you know.
Well, who told you this, for example?
Because a couple that survived, I always searched to read up about it. And I have a book, I have a whole book about it. That as soon as the German army, the Nazi army went in, the very first thing, they grabbed 12 of the outstanding
leaders of the city. This is in Ruzhany?
In Ruzhany. And liquidated him, see?
And that's where he had a pharmacy.
Reyes, yeah. And there was a Chalutza, Dobele, the yngste Tochter, so she came for a visit. And she was caught.
Raya's sister?
Raya's sister, yeah.
And she was caught by the Nazis?
Yeah, by the Nazis. And when they took all the children and murdered, my uncle and aunt committed suicide. They took Strichnin, die kennt er rübergetroffen. Sie sind gewusst, they'll murder him anyway. they've gone, my ganzen Buch Jiddischen.
Yes, but the book is in Yiddish and I can't read it.
Yeah, well, I'll
so...
tell you about it. I'll show you pictures tomorrow if you want. Stay there, you know.
But
I have to show you some things, so anyway.
But that's really the extent of what you know about your mother's family, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you, the extent is the cousin that came, they lived in Odessa, I told you. In Odessa, what worse, my uncle brought them all over to Hamburg. She told me the grüne Cousine was nur sagen. They were brought over here by first cousin from Portland, Maine. I told you once the story about the $500 they can check, no?
Oh.
Yes.
I had a very philanthropic. He was a first cousin. Sieger, they called it, S-I-E-G-E-R. My brother Reimer was there, spent some time. Didn't even a Shemediker, yeah. We can't hear, but I met their son. And the daughter, they had a son and a daughter. The daughter, the principal in one of the biggest cities in Maine, in high school.
Whose daughter now?
This cousin, Sieger, a first cousin. Yeah. Kommt von einer ganz feine family.
I think that Daddy got confused about one part of the story about Riot's sister Dobby. She was in Israel. In fact, she used to visit your grandfather quite often in Jerusalem. And then she decided she wants to go home for a visit to Ruzhane.
Do you know what year this was?
That was just before the war broke out,
so
the Second World War.
In the late 30s?
I suppose so. And she stayed there for some time, and she happened to meet a nice fellow, and she got married. Then the war broke out, and when the Germans occupied Ruzhane, and they started to go from house to house and take the people and send them away. So she went with a group, they called it the underground, in the woods. And they had ammunition, they had guns, they had everything to fight back.
How do you know all this?
Because Raya told us. And I don't know whether in the book, I haven't written, but the pictures are there. And by running from one place to the other, the Germans found out that there are a group of people there that are fighting them back. So they killed her. Her parents find out about her, and then they had a daughter in Slaw named Sonia. And Sonia was married and had a beautiful baby boy, and her husband had a big drugstore. And they lived very well with a sleeping maid and everything. So they were taken from their home, sent away in concentration camps. So, and the parents knew that any minute they're going to come and get them too. And having a drugstore, they both took poison, they found them dead. So that was the end of his Aunt Debbie and her husband.
Which is Raya's mother.
Yeah. They also had a boy that was before the war, that he had, what they call it, but Mary had it.
What?
Epilepsy?
Epilepsy.
Oh.
What?
And he wanted to go to Israel very badly. And because on account of that...
This is Raya's brother?
Raya's brother.
What was it with an accident?
Isaac, no. Well, it happened why he got the epilepsy is because a horse, he was riding a horse or something, that kicked him and he fell and hurt his
That
hand.
wasn't Isaac, that said the second one, Schlemel.
Whatever. And he...
Because Isaac is the one who settled it.
Yeah, that was the youngest.
Yes.
And he wanted to go to Israel the worst way. And account of his sickness, they wouldn't allow
A
him.
horse gave him a...
They wouldn't allow him to go to Israel, so he committed suicide. He's a young fellow.
When was this?
That was before the war broke out.
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, so this had nothing to do
It had
with
nothing to
That
do.
has nothing to do riot.
This was over a disappointment of not being able to follow
Right.
Raya.
Yeah, so he committed
It was-
suicide.
Well, when did Raya, you said, went to Palestine in 1927?
27, yeah.
20, so that's 7 years after you came to America.
Right.
And
She went in the gymnasium in Slonim, the rich uncle had him, and she graduated in Slonim.
High school.
But when did Isaac go to Palestine?
I do not know exactly what year, I don't know.
But when Raya went, she went at the age of 16
Yeah, I suppose 17 maybe, I don't
as
know.
a chulusa.
She was working on the Kavish. Raya was an educated girl in Russian and Yiddish and all
She
of
helped them build the roads.
Hebrew, but she worked and worked very hard and had malaria. She told me what she went
Did
through.
Raya correspond with you in America at that time?
I sent her money once, twice, yeah. She told me, yes, yeah. She
So-
remembers that.
So then Isaac followed her, but you don't know when.
I
But
don't know
that,
exactly.
but that other brother committed suicide because he just was not able to go.
Mhm.
Yeah. Raya's father was exceptional man. Raya's father, he knew chemistry, he could make anything, he can do anything. He would put out the sign outside the drugstore. When the Germans, so he printed it in German. When the Polacks, so he made a Polska. And then the Russians changed it the other side. He made soap, he made ink, he made so many different things.
Well, he's the one who influenced you towards wanting to become a farmer.
I never showed you a postcard that I have from him. Raya was here and I showed her, I save everything.
But isn't it because of him you thought you'd become a pharmacist?
Well, I'll tell you what, he had a lot of books.
What Daddy mentioned about the Slonimer, they used to call him the Slonimer Rebbe. And people used to go to him from all over, I should say, Europe. Some people didn't have the means to travel. They used to borrow money and go for his blessings. Because his blessings had such a big effect on people that were in distress. And they needed someone to make them, to give them hope and to bless it and to give them a reason to hope for the healed people should get well, the ones that wanted to have children should have a child, and so forth.
Mom, so you're saying people came from your shtetl, from your town.
From my town, from big cities, and my town was a village-like.
And how far away was your town? Your town was Vysoka?
Vysoka Mazowiecka.
But then that was how far would you say from Slonim?
From Slonim was very far.
Very far under the circumstances. We didn't have cars.
It would take days
By wagon.
by wagon or by train.
Well, by wagon and train.
And train would take days. And they used to go to him and he used to call each one of them into a room and ask them their problems, to tell them their problems. And he
Give them
used-
courage and all.
and he used to bless them and put his hands on their head, and he says, "Go, Gesundheit, go home." And
But you never saw him.
no,
You
I
ne-
saw pictures.
But you were never in Slonim.
No,
But Dad, you saw him. Did you ever see him?
Oh, now I got a money in.
and he used to say, "Go home, and all your wishes will come true, and I'll pray." So I know a woman that couldn't have children, and she was very, very depressed because she wanted a child very badly. She went to him, and in a short time later she became pregnant, and she had more than one. She had about 4 children afterwards. His picture was all over in every Jewish home.
That's right.
And you really,
And he looked, his face was from a prophet.
and you really believe it's from his, let's say, bracha that she became
I
pregnant.
shouldn't even,
Well-
on Shabbos I shouldn't
Well, that what they believed. And maybe he advised them to get medical assistance. Who knows? But it happened. And people just felt at ease when they saw him that half of the boys he took off their shoulders. And so therefore, Daddy was near that city, Slonim, and I was so far away. But I knew about the Rebbe from Slonim, and it was, I asked my father-in-law, your father's father, why did they have such a big prophets that they could foretell and foresee so much ahead of the time? And he gave me a good answer. He says they were very clever people with big minds, and they understood things that we didn't understand, and they could foresee
Are you trying to say there aren't clever people today?
They are. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people can foresee things too, but it doesn't happen like it happened. It was small towns. People weren't so scientific inclined. They didn't know all this. They just knew if you go to the Slonim Rebbe, then all your problems will be solved. And that's what had happened. You know, sometimes peace of mind helps a lot, and he gave him peace of mind.
That's why they talk of constructive thinking, positive thinking.
Positive
if you believe, certain things can happen.
Right. And his face to me always looked like Moses, but you didn't see the whole profile. And he didn't have such a long beard, but his face, his eyes, and it was something holy you had in your house when you had this.
Dad, did you say you saw him or you never saw him?
All right, then I'll tell you a little example. I was walking with my cousin Yova, the middle boy. I don't remember, was it the weekday or Shabbos day? And we were stopped. And we were asked by him or by Yeshames, he didn't walk by himself, there was another rabbi who was running,
A guy.
asked Kinderlach, was wird Habok nur 7 Jahre? And I didn't quite understand, was wird der Bock nur 7 Jahre? Und er hat gesagt, was wird dem Bock? Der Schamesdenker hat das gefragt, wollte ich gerade einen Begriff. A Bock, wisst ihr, was meint? The male of...
A deer.
No,
Yeah.
of the Schäpsen, of the Ziegen, denke ich, von den Ziegen, the
I
male
don't know
of...
that.
You're talking of a goat?
Yeah, the male of the goats is not a Bock.
No, that's a deer. A male deer is a buck.
That's an English Bock, but
Well,
the
that's
name
what
of Bock
It's the same thing
is a
in
male.
English.
Anyway, was mir wohl gefragt, was wär dem Bock, but dem Bock, what does it happen to him, or something like that? It wasn't clear, and we couldn't make it. Der Kinderlach, es wird 8 Jahre.
After 7.
Du verstehst, was er fragt. But hat mir gesagt, I didn't even know.
Well, this is a riddle.
Whether it was true, whether
It's a child's riddle. That's
Yeah,
all.
that's a
a
riddle.
little, yeah, but what's well, it just depends how you ask.
But the question is, did you ever see this rabbi?
So I don't know whether he was truly, that's what I said. Lova told me, I was a small kid.
Oh, Sam, please, he wasn't a riddle man.
So I don't know, I
make
swear
it.
that's again, ich weiß nicht, das was auch.
Right, Dad.
But I'll tell you, he wasn't the only one. In the Jewish homes, Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan, there were outstanding rabbis, but he was one among them that in most of the Jewish homes this was his picture. It's outstanding, but I can tell you one thing, this I know, that the officers, the Russian officers, before they were sent to the battlefront, a lot of them came to ask his blessing that they shouldn't get killed.
You mean Christian officers?
Christians, Yiddish, they used to come and ask the blessings, especially those that went with the long peaks. What is the cavalry that was, they don't use them anymore with the long
sabers.
So I heard that a lot of them used to come and ask that they shouldn't get cut up in the battle. Well, wir tun das gar nicht nicht reden, Shabbos, soll der Rebbe Meichel sein.
Why? To talk about
All right, what you have said that when you were leaving Europe for America.
Oh, when we left Europe, there was still shooting all around the city because there was always fighting. I couldn't go to the cemetery to say goodbye to my mama's grave because there were all sides. One day they caught me, the Polish officers, they made me to work half a day. I ran away. I would work the whole day to load up a truck. We lived through so many. These young fellows were caught. Come on. So, but I had on my mind to go and bet na broche to Umzarov because I had no papers. I had no affidavits. Always in Schreck. Do you think, why am I so nervous?
Oh, sure.
I did not receive an affidavit. So in other words, I went, not knowing whether I'll even get a visa to go to America. I had nothing to show. So I went to the broche and I said, Rabbi, we are going to try, maybe we'll make it. Because we tried one way, in the Bolsheviks caught us, we were always near Bialystok. We came back. So this time we took a different road by Brest-Litovsk. And I don't know, it's mir reingefallen in den Kopf, I'll make it to the rabbi and ask for a broche. When we came there, so he says, Kinderlach, fortgesunde Red, ihr wird mir Hashem der Griechen, euer Ziel, euer Zweck, your purpose. But you should never forget, you should always know who your grandfather was. Remember that. That's what he said. And with all this hardship, but I went through without affidavits, and did I ever tell you that the Polish gendarmes wanted to throw me out of the, yeah? Maybe you don't know. When
he said to you, sollt never vergessen, you sind Zeigers Einikel.
Zeigers Einikel, Yankov Zeigers Einikel. So, I went away, more at ease. The rabbi had me gegeben a blessing. We left, Warsaw in the middle of the night. You know what, in order to get from the, wie das geheißen, the Droschkas, where they flag oben, the one coach to the railroad station in Wien in the middle of the night. So what did we do that will come? I was told to ask. And another party, a man that was also going, we took away from him that number. That means that he's obligated, he can't travel. So
now this is 1920 and you were 17 years old?
Yeah.
And Jack was how old?
Jack, how old was he? He was 12. That's right, because he didn't become bar mitzvah until he came in America, tat in der Schule dort. Also eine toke Mami, so we left Warsaw from the Wiener Wagazal. I had in Wiener Wagazal, Wagazal means a railroad station. That was a very, very big one on Marshalkovsky. Have you ever been in Wiener Wagazal? As we walk in, a little short man comes over to me, and he says, I would like, if you can, give me a little financial help. Is that possible? And I look at him, and I remember they lived once upon a time in Rezhenoi. His brother was the rider Schave Rodem Ben Leyaker, a big rider, and his father was an outstanding man. So I looked at him, and I says, you look familiar to me, because I remember as a kid, he used to deliver the moment, certain papers from Warsaw. So I said to him, you look very familiar to me. Where do you originally come from? Oh, he says, I come from a small town in Grodno Gubernia. I say, where from? He says, Rezhnoi. So I recognize you. So I know who you are. Who are you? Fragt mir. So hier bin Zeigers Einiglis from women. So da Zeigers. Oh my God. Hat mir gesagt gleich, I knew Dobbe, I knew Chome, I knew, and he started to tell me, he says, a small world. I gave him, I remember, 20 marks. And he thanked me very, very much. And he said, Vorgesundheit. And he'll take to your destination. The train pulled out from Warsaw and went out of Poland, if you heard, Plonsk, where David Ben-Gurion was born, and he went in to the territory that our President Wilson has given back to the Polish people that was taken away from the Germans. When we left the city of Thorn, you heard maybe in the map, you can find it, the city of Thorn. And we went to the city, the next one in Germany, it was called Bromberg, but the Polacks called it Bydgoszcz. Maybe you heard that there was a lot of those that are fighting now with the authorities. In Bydgoszcz there was uprising several. I go in the train with my brother, a great big gendarme, 3 times as big as I am. He goes over to me, passport. I shall take him the passport. And in those days, the Polacks used to do, take away, tear it up, you're lost. Where are you going? I say, I'm going to America. And he asked me.
You were speaking in Polish or German?
No,
or Russian?
Polish, 3 words. I spoke Russian, I couldn't speak Polish. The few weeks that I spent in Warsaw, I learned a little bit Polish. So, why aren't you joining the Polish army? I say, ja młoda, you're young.
But you also aren't Polish.
2, 3 words, but I'll tell you, he
thought you were Polish.
He knows I am traveling through Poland. He didn't know exactly where I come from. But wait a minute, as dumb as I am now, I was smart. When I made a passport, I put my age 15. Du verstehst? And he says to me, Ile Tibilat. Wie alt bin ich? How old am I? I says, 15. 15. What were you doing? I say, a student. And it wasn't this. There were a lot of women saying, where is your parents? Ojciec, mama, wie sagt man?
Ojciec.
Ojciec a tate. Sag mal, ojciec w Amerika. And mama umerla, gestorben. And he wasn't this. Several times he went over again, passporta. And I knew, seeing your mother schon said that used to happen. They would tear up the passport.
And you couldn't go.
That's it, you're lost. So several women started to tell him, you see, there are 2 small children, they have no mother, they are going to their father. And they started to ask him, you know, he should have pity with us, and don't make me Schwierigkeit. I still think the broche what the rabbi gave me hat mir geholfen. I once said it I told where the rabbi in shul, I told him the story, and I says, Pisem noflo tademo opnei nov. I spoke Hebrew with him, that means suddenly fell a shloch on him, and he fell asleep. And when we came to the city of Bromberg, Bydgoszcz, I went over. The Polish trains were the other shelves above the seats, and I had there a pillow, a bag with bread and food. My brother was a very weak child, and I had also a korzinki. You know what it means? The geflochtene. No, it's
a
not.
Fabric.
It's made
A
out
little
of
tonk. A little
wood
tonk.
or something.
A little tonk.
I went over Pamelachkes. He shouldn't wake up, and I grabbed everything, and I said to my brother, Yankov, come on, leave him. I didn't care what. I had tickets bought in term for second or third class, but there was a train that went to the border. I went in there. I was very much upset. I went in, and there was some German women says, and I said to them, I was very fearful. I said to them, I just had a terrible experience. And the German woman said to me, there was see that piece of land belonged to Germany, so there were mix, German and Polish, said to me in German, sagen Sie gar nichts, da sind viele Polen hier. I shouldn't say anything because there are a lot of Polish. And we went together to the border, you know, before you went into Germany. We arrived there at night. One of the women says to me, come with me, come with us. I say, what for? She called me. We'll treat you with a cognac to pep you up. You are very fearful. I say, because he wanted to throw me out. Macht sie zu mir, gar nicht mit sagen, get a cognac. We stayed overnight. Early in the morning, we had to go, before we went out to get the German train, to go to Schneidemill. That's already in Germany. See, Schneidemill. The Polacks called it Pila. A Schneidemill is
Wood.
It's was a sect.
Wood.
Or so, you know. They called it Pila. We had to exchange the money, the Polish, for whatever we had, for German marks, and show them all the papers that I had tickets bought, and we entered the train, the German. As soon as we arrived in Schneidemill, guess what did I do? I felt...
In Berlin, you mean? Yeah.
No. Von Schneidemill to Berlin ist gedacht, nehmen wir noch ein Train. Berlin was further. Berlin, see. Von Schneidemill, I was a big shot. I wrote 2 postcards right away to my Chaver Efroim Epstein, that was to our wedding, and to the Kaplinskis, that ich bin ein glücklicher Mensch, ich bin ein Reus von Polen, in Deutschland. I spoke German. And some Polish women asked me to buy tickets for them. I remember distinctly that I went, they didn't, I did that, and one, the tickets, and I remember even the way I had to go, says, what are you, like a salesman, or what are you doing every time? I says, they don't speak German, they sprechen nur Deutsch. And I was very, very hopeful, courageous that I made it.
Now, all this time you were traveling without any visas?
What? A visa?
You had no visa?
No, yeah, in Warsaw I got the visa, see?
No papers.
The visa, I had no affidavits. I was issued the visa, the American...
What would you need the affidavit for?
To issue that somebody needs me, is calling me.
Oh, in America?
Yeah.
But yet, the tickets had been sent by your father.
You know what I mean? If you had no American visa, you cannot do anything. That's a story in itself. The American visa, but I left till I got it without showing anything. That I mixed it in.
Well, why don't you tell that too?
Yeah, all right. The American visa, after all, I was a young boy and I didn't have very much experience from the big cities. You know where that time the American embassy was? Świętojuska. You heard of that street?
In what city?
In Warsaw. I went as soon as the What was it, the store that used to open up the gate from the house every...
Eiserne,
Huh?
the eiserne tail.
They opened up and let out the residents. Every had a gate, every big house. I lived in Warsaw, 57, 57, mieszkanie 31.
What do you mean you live there?
I was a few weeks in Warsaw.
Waiting to get the visa, you mean?
Sure, to get a visa.
But this was with all your belongings and everything.
Yeah. I didn't even have, there were so many immigrants, I slept on the table.
Well, I was going to say, where did you get the money to stay in Warsaw for several weeks?
Oh, he asked a very, very good question. From Białystok, I think, I wired my father and he sent me $100. And for $100 you got so many marks that time, you know. So that's how I managed. What do you think? Getrokken Schiche gewinnen. I wore a cap with a Kaziro, because I was a Russian soldier, with a paar calafes. The Schiche gewinnen saying that when I came to this country, I got corns all over. Stiebel mit calafes. And my brother Jack kriegt not enough milk more, herabziehen das.
But your father had sent tickets before the war, and then he sent them again.
Sent affidavits several. I made in the city of Slonim that if any packages comes, anything that comes, they made it with the attorney that belongs all to Raya's father, then they received some, but I didn't get any. Because all the time, it was the Russians, it was the Germans back again, it was always...
So why didn't you have the affidavit?
I didn't receive it. How did I get the visa? I went to the American consul and asked him that we didn't receive it, but I have a postcard from my father here that it says he sent out some more, and it was underlined. They says to me,
and that was in Yiddish.
In Yiddish a postcard, but my father wrote very nice the address. He could write Russian, the address in Polish. So they were very, very nice. I have everything to show. I have everything in my belongings. You'll get it someday. I can even give it to you anytime you come here. I have everything verbalten in a box. So, says, but we would ask you to go to the IAS. That's the Immigrant Sheltering Society. I come there, live it. There were thousands and thousands of people in the yard. Some baked for something. I ran in, I went over, and I said my troubles, I got it on. The head of that was Dr. Schluger, as rein in Gan Eden. I'm sure what he did for the immigrants, I have that too. So he dictated to a secretary what you should write. I have it here, it says, Your Excellency, please forward these two kids a visa, whatever this says is correct, and thank you very much. I have that to prove it to you. So I ran back. I didn't walk. I came to Schwantayurska.
And Jack was with you during this time?
I don't remember whether Jack ran with me each time. He went with me to some places. So, a Polish gendarme, before I entered the second time to the, I saw shiny shoes. I said, they're waiting for me, whatever I said in Polish. And he says, no, I shall first shine. When he stepped aside for a while, I ran in. I ran in with that letter from the IAS, signed by Dr. Schluger, the girl. I have everything to prove whatever I tell you. And I got my visa.
Now, what did the Hayas say that you needed papers from them for the American Embassy?
What did they say?
In other words, why did you have to go to Hayas before you could get your...
Before the Hayas, they, first of all, I thought I wouldn't get enough money till I make it. God knows what's expected. So while I was in Warsaw, I wired to my father and he
Excuse
sent
me,
money.
Sam.
Dias.
The reason why you went to die is because you didn't have no proof that you didn't have affidavits.
No affidavit.
That was the reason he went.
So, in fact,
So what did Hayas do, actually? What did they give you? They couldn't give you papers, they couldn't give you an affidavit in your
no,
father's
but
name.
they have written this letter. What
The
they
protocol.
were with the ambassador. I forgot. I think his name was Wilson. Was a baby American embassy.
Well, he was convinced whatever it was in the
That's
postal
true.
card that his
Whatever I
father
say,
wrote.
and I got my visa. Once you get the American visa, then you're a man. Then
Well, First you had to get a Polish visa.
That's right. Then I went to the Dutch consul, a beautiful alley there. I don't remember what it was. You were on Alley Jerusalemska.
I was
When you
all
crossed it, there was, that was the nicest street.
Beautiful.
I went to the Dutch consul. They should give me a visa, you know. I went to the German consul. They were 48.
Now you needed the Dutch visa because you were traveling through
To
Holland
I went to Rotterdam.
to get the boat.
That's right. In Holland, they asked me whether I want to go to a different way through Austria and France and take a boat from Boulogne-sur-Mer. I says, I have a feeling that the steamship tickets that my father sent out as soon in 17, as soon as he found out that Mama died, but America went in for a little while, so it stopped. I was notified, you know, through the city of Kovno, Berlin. I got a card. I have everything to show that we have to stop the immigration. Only one woman made it, and but once I got, I'll make it short.
So you're saying that you didn't have the tickets in hand. The tickets were waiting at the steamship company for you?
Yeah. So I had a feeling that my father did not withdraw it. I kind of thought that I bet you when I'll come to Rotterdam I'll find it. Der Arzt hat mir gesagt, I wasn't so smart, I don't know, but I had a feeling. So I went to the Holland consul, and with them they speak German, so I had no trouble. I went to the German consul. I remember just now with them. I have the passport. I can show you all these routes. When I came to Rotterdam, I went with my brother right away to the Holland-America line. They looked it up. They also had to stay in line. I had to go out while staying, so my brother waited and he kept my necks. And they looked all up and they said, yes, you have it. But when this was purchased, it's a couple of years. So you got to pay us. I had to pay him $12 extra because $15, I don't remember, because my brother got older. He became already age 12. So I had to pay. But
how much time went by between the time you left Ruzhinoy and you got to Rotterdam?
That's a very, very good question you just asked me. Very good question. We left Ruzhinoy right after Sukkot because we tried and we were returned by the Bolsheviks, so we went by Brest-Litovsk, a different way. It was with a lot of trouble.
So this would have been like...
So we left
October,
right after Sukkot.
Like October?
And the American visa I got issued November 10, I think, and it says that there. And we arrived in
Rotterdam.
In America, in Novak.
No, but when did you get to Rotterdam?
To Rotterdam we came December 12th. Yeah.
So you were at least traveling for 2 months before you got to Rotterdam after you left the Ruzhani.
I think so, because we arrived in Obok, New Jersey. It took us 9 days to go by boat, it was before Christmas, and we couldn't get off. It were 8 or 9 ships for the immigrants. So the ship New Amsterdam had to go back. So they put us on another ship, we stayed there. I had my entire Zoon as a viel Schreck and Sorg, I should say, worries, because I had my address from my father from Bronzeville, Sackman Street, and I sent a card. He didn't get it right away. It took a few days. The American Post Office was very prompt and efficient.
Keep going.
But by the time he got it, he lived downtown on Madison Street. I think I showed you the house. So every day I used to stay with a big sign and holler, Max Brody. I made a big sign, Max Brody, your children, or your kinder, I don't remember. I remember I made it, Schlemke and Yankel. And it was just one Thursday morning.
This was on the
boat in Oberton. One morning, Jack was a very big child. He didn't feel good, he didn't eat, he didn't like the food. I ate on the ship, he used to vomit. A lot of them used to vomit they couldn't take it. And I say, come here, Yankel, I think there's a tate for it. He wore always a derby. And geschrien, Max, Brody, ihr gedenkt wie jetzt, mit der Schein. Geschrien.
Did you know what your father looked like?
Well, from the pictures was man einmal erhalten before the war. I had an idea.
So you were waiting how long before he came?
We came Monday morning till Thursday morning.
And was there any way you communicated to him that you had arrived?
Oh, here is another one. He didn't live anymore in Brownsville, so it took him a few days till he got it, see? And when 2 days before the ship arrived, they had the addresses. So he also marked, the guy came, 185 Brook Street to my brother in Hartford, Connecticut. But he didn't make 185, I says to him in German. It looks like 105. And he says, I know my writing. My brother didn't have a telephone, to notify. They didn't have a telephone in the house when we came. Verstehst? So it took several days till we got. Can you imagine my Schreck? He bekommt nicht. So finally my father came and I laid down a cord and a boy ungeschrieben zu mir and a little package given mustard, gedenk ich, mit Delikatessen etwas, something, and hat gesagt, sorg nicht, if du darfst, da stehen noch ein paar Tage, mit schon nicht schicken zurück, ob nicht kein mehr. Sunday morning, my brother Raimund came from Hartford too, and they both came. My brother Raimund came just to see me, and had geschrien, wo ist Yankel? Yankel was gewesen in der Back, hat zugeschleppt, hat nicht gefühlt gut, hat die ganze Zeit gewesen, ausgedacht, durchgetrunken.
So you got off the boat or they went on the boat?
No, they were down with a little boat. They used to get it for a few dollars. They were hundreds of them used to come. Der gesagt schön, rumgeschickt ein paar Wörter und ich hatte etwas mit einem package or food or something. And sorg nicht, it's a matter of days because before Christmas is sehr eine Schiffung gekommen und wir können to take care of everyone. Verstehst?
So you still couldn't speak to each other, it was just through notes.
Wir haben geschrien through notes und geschrien, hey, ich geschrien. Havinke, till when my father came, that was right after Christmas, yeah. The 27th of December, finally, we were released. My father's rein hat gedacht, etwas dort noch ausmachen, etwas certain papers, and they have examined Zu der kennst lesen, zu der bist nicht,
Excuse me, what they wanted is to guarantee that they wouldn't have to
Support.
yeah,
That-
yeah, that's right. Mein Vater rein, and they gave to read, I says, gelegen books in different languages, so you can lesen etwas. So habe ich gesagt, in Deutsch, wie, ich kann lesen, was wollen Sie mir fragen? Any language,
Now,
it's
your-
nicht dumm.
Your name in Europe was Brevda,
Brevda,
but you really weren't called Brody.
Brody, my father was Brody.
Where was he Brody? In America, but not in Europe.
I think originally there was Brody, I believe, I'm not sure, because there were several in the Russian post office. My father used to send 30 ruble every month. The Raznoschik, I remember just now, vielleicht kommen mit der Paveske und sagen, als sie kommen, denke ich, habe ich das gemacht, but I'm not positive.
Brevda is Russian or
Russian.
that's Russian.
Russian. Brody.
Now there is a town Brody.
That's right. In Austria it was. Now it's Galicia, I suppose, not far from Lemberg. I know. Well, anyway.
But you didn't call yourself Brody till you came to America.
That's
because-
right. That's right.
But when you wrote to your father, you wrote Max Brody, so you knew he was
That's
Brody.
right. Exactly. Well, when they cleared us, mein Tate hat genommen meine Päcklach, hat man gewollt losen tragen. So ich Tate, ich hab gehabt mehr Schwierigkeiten, gib mir zu tragen. Und hat zugetanzt.
Was Jaime was with him then?
No,
He came alone.
No, I had to go out for the bread route. And so kinderlach, while the boat came from Ellis Island to the elevator, you know what I mean, to crossing. You have seen Ellis Island from far, yeah?
Yes.
To get off in Park Road or somewhere. So kinderlach, you wrote a Stiefmami, because ich gewollt einfixen a Raum. Und du weißt doch, wir tun nicht stehen allein mit der Freude. So hat gefunden, but ist a stille Freude, sie da gar nicht sterben. Und ihr tog mal Raum. Und ich hab geweint. Als ihr sagt,
Now Jack didn't know your father at all.
not at all, he was 10 weeks old. I was 3,5 or 4, or what, or 4,5, I don't know. Se Tate, ihr Gedenk, wie das gegangen von uns und gekauft von mir
Registradas. Registradas.
No, es ging richtig.
ABC.
ABC, alle Base. Ja, sie weiß besser, was ich mein. Sagt zu mir, oh, du hast sehr einen guten Sekund. Ich habe eine gute Memory. So ich, yes. And that's what I lived through, so is there a wonder that I'm nervous?
You mentioned how Jack was sick on the ship.
Very sick.
But during, let's say, these 2 months, you were traveling from Ruzhinoy to get to the boat.
Yeah.
How was it caring for him?
Terrible. Hat Porsche nicht can't digest anything. Was haben wir gegessen?
Speak in English. In English.
You know, what did we eat? In Warsaw, Nattenzon. You heard of Nattenzon's Wurst. I bought a big Kischke Wurst and bread, rice, Bobby, to the gang mit uns angekifft. I used it several times, the same thing. Maybe that's why I spoiled my stomach. In Holland, again when we came, they gave us white bread and cheese and white bread. It was such a different in the dinners and suppers. Arvin darling, I came, but I was in Schreck. I have no trade, I have no skill, I don't know anything, and I seen that my father got a gewöhnlichen Leben. He was a collector for some. So,
For
But your
Ayas.
But your father was already an American citizen then.
He couldn't bring him over otherwise.
I suppose so.
But your father had been to America several times. Well, he had.
Twice.
But your father had studied in Palestine before he ever went to America. Is that right?
He was in Palestine before he even got married. He was learning in the yeshivas.
So this would have been like what year was he studying in yeshivas in Palestine? This would be in the 1890s?
I don't remember. I had a sefer, a book that it was. Did my rich Seide geändert gewollt, sie mit vielleicht herausnehmen von den Yeshivas a guter Lerner. Mit gewollt ihm, a son-in-law, soll nicht sein kein proster Mensch. That's all.
I understand.
That's all. The whole story in a nutshell. And believe me.
So do you know when he first came to America and what year?
He was here twice. He came the third time he came, and
the third time is when he remained in America.
He thought that maybe he'll accomplish something, but it's him gezeichnet zurück. He had a business, a grosses, da gedenke ich, wenn es gewinnt der Pogrom hat man mir verschlossen dort.
So you don't know when was the first time he came to America?
I don't know.
Because he was already married.
Yeah.
So he came to America as a married man, went back.
He was one of tens of thousands of women, you know what I mean, of married men that left the women there, and then finally they brought him over. My mother, Sholem, first of all, she was afraid to go. I remember now, I was in Europe when the Titanic, she cried. She says, if a ship like that could sink, she was afraid. And then she had her sisters and brothers, the whole family. She didn't care to go to America. She was afraid.
All right, I'm not going to do it now, but I want to find out from you all about your father's family. And
I know very little. That's all I know is what my brother Jaime told me, that he came from a small town of the Minsker Gubernia, and his mother lived till 90, Yanka. And what else did he tell me? Yes, that he has family he had here in Vermont, first cousins, a lot of them. What was the name, Libby?
Zeiger.
No, the first cousins, my father's. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. Mein Arvin Kevedev something.